And then before presentation, so on 13th August, we have to submit all relevant materials of your project. And then finally, you have to present your project presentation on 16th of August. So additionally, I will also share a template for how to write your project report. So for project report, you can follow this IEEE conference template. So here I have shared a doc file for IEEE conference. So you can follow this format to write your project report. So project report, you can write a complete paper. So that would be helpful for me to give you some instruction. So if you want to make some conference or journal from this project, so then I can provide feedback. And other things you already know about project presentation, so you can do it as your own way, like a midterm semester. In addition to this information, you also have to submit for project program data set. So I hope you are clear about final assessment. So if you have ওকে, সো এখানে আমরা তিনটা ডেডলাইন দিয়েছি। প্রথম হচ্ছে আমাদের কিন্তু আজকে শেষ ক্লাস অফিশিয়ালি কোর্সের, তো আমাদের বাকি আছে ফাইনাল অ্যাসেসমেন্ট। তো ফাইনাল অ্যাসেসমেন্টের মধ্যে আমাদের তিনটা বিষয়, একটা হচ্ছে ফাইনাল এক্সাম, সেটা হবে আপনার 9 তারিখ অগস্টের। তো দ্যাট মিন নেক্সট যে মানডে আসবে সেটা। তারপরে আমাদের ইম্পর্টেন্ট কাজ হচ্ছে প্রজেক্ট প্রেজেন্টেশন, যে ফাইনাল প্রজেক্ট প্রেজেন্টেশন। প্রজেক্ট প্রেজেন্টেশনের পূর্বে আমাদের যে রিলেভেন্ট ম্যাটেরিয়াল গুলো আছে, যে আপনাদের প্রেজেন্টেশন ফাইলটা সাবমিট করতে হবে, তারপরে প্রজেক্ট রিপোর্টটা সাবমিট করতে হবে, অ্যাজ ওয়েল এজ কি কি ডাটা সেট বা কি ধরনের সেই ইনফরমেশন গুলো 14th অগাস্টে সাবমিট করতে হবে, কারণ আমাকে একটু এবং আপনাদের গ্রুপিং গুলো করতে হবে। তো তার জন্য আমি হয়তো 2 দিন আগে দিয়েছিলাম। So now you can say you have enough time because I am announcing all this thing at least 2 weeks ago. So যদি এটা কিভাবে লিখবেন এর জন্য আমি একটা টেমপ্লেট শেয়ার করেছি। তো কনফারেন্স টেমপ্লেট A4, এই ফাইলটা, এটা জেনারেলি IEEE যে কনফারেন্স গুলো হয় তারা এই টেমপ্লেট ফলো একটা ফরম্যাট। তোমার টাইটেল থাকবে, তো দেখেন কি ফাইলটা খুলে বা আমি একটু শেয়ার করি। তো এটা ফলো করে যদি আপনারা কোনো রিপোর্ট লিখেন, তো পরবর্তীতে হয় এটা খুব ইজিলি ইউজ করতে পারবেন। তো প্রথমে পেপারের টাইটেল, তারপরে এখানে আপনারা যারা যারা টিম মেম্বার আছেন তাদের ইনফরমেশন গুলো দিবেন। তারপরে হবে অ্যাবস্ট্রাক্টের পরে কিওয়ার্ড। তো এখানে থাকবে ইন্ট্রোডাকশন। ইন্ট্রোডাকশনে কিভাবে লিটারেচার বা কি কি পেপার ফলো করেছেন তার উপরে একটু সামারি দিবেন। এখানে সেকেন্ডে আপনারা লিখবেন, তারা হয়তো এখানে পেপারটা গাইডলাইনটা দিয়েছে, বাট আমার এখানে যে সাজেশন এখানে হবে methodology, তারপরে এখানে হয়তো লিখবেন রেজাল্ট, তারপরে 4 নম্বরে হতে পারে ডিসকাশন, ফাইনালি কনক্লুশন, আর লাস্টে রেফারেন্স। এই মানে সেকশন গুলো ফলো করবেন। আর এখানে একটা গাইডলাইন দেওয়া আছে আইটিইএ কনফারেন্সটা কিভাবে করতে হয়, ফন্ট সাইজ, তারপরে ইকুয়েশন গুলো কিভাবে লিখতে হয়। তো এটা একটা কিন্তু গুড প্র্যাকটিস টু বি প্রিপেয়ার ফর দি আপকামিং পেপার or conference or journal paper writing. So far all about this announcement and as well as final assessment topics and criteria. So now we will start today's lesson. Basically, we will review so far we have learned as well as we will discuss about recent trend about machine learning. So in this course so far we have learned machine learning and neural network fundamentals in our lecture 1. Then we have learned about single layer perceptron, as well as we have extended the single layer perceptron from multi-layer perceptron. Additionally, we have learned about support vector machine. We also deeply discussed about nearest neighborhood classifier, committee machine, and then we have discussed about variants of different neural network like convolution neural network, recurrent neural network. Again, so specifically we also learned about unsupervised machine learning as well as dimension reduction and self-organizing map. So if I recap the fundamentals of machine learning and neural networks. So the first question is about what is learning. So as you can imagine, learning is the process that our brain or nervous system respond there is any change throughout our circumstance. So by which our brain system or nervous system gets signal and information about change or circumstance. So these things are processed inside our brain through complicated neural network structure and then perform our decision making. So this thing actually mimicking in artificial neural network by using some mathematical and computational model, so which is called perceptron. So if you compare the perceptron with human brain or any animal brain system, so specifically for an example of human brain, so we know human brain is composed of more than 10 billion neurons. So 10 billion. So at this stage, it's very challenging to imagine all this network, how complicated it could be. So if we want to mimic the single neuron, so we say it is perceptron. So what it look like perceptron? I know we are all clear. So perceptron, there will have some cell body. And this cell body will be connected with some input. So there are lots of input connection can have each perceptron So we note this area as the input. So this area we will say input. If we compare this representation with actual human brain neuron, so we will call it cell body, but here we will say it as a weighted sum computational block. So how do you perform weighted sum? So we will have input, for example, x or fine, x, and parallelly we also know each, each input is connected with some weight. Like W1 up to Wn. So we will have from x1 to xn input, and each input line is correspond to its some weight. Inside cell body, there will be perform weighted sum calculation using this equation. So I know you all are now clear about this notation. So what it does actually, it does first they perform multiplication and then do summation. So finally, we will have some output. So this is the basic unit of artificial neural network, which is called perceptron. So now the big question is about that. We have seen that this single perceptron cannot perform sophisticated decision. For example, if my problem is non-linear problem, that means it's not possible to divide using linearly. So this is input and this is output. In between we have system. So what we have seen, the nonlinear problem, it can be like XOR, logical gate, or many nonlinear application. For example, if I say so So if we have this kind of problem, so we can easily draw straight line to divide them into two classes. So this is easy. So here we have two inputs. So horizontal line we can say x1 and vertical line is x2. So if we compare with this network, so we will calculate this weighted sum. So after calculating this weighted sum, we will compare this weighted sum with some threshold value. For example, if is less than 0, then we will say one class. If this weighted sum is greater than or equal to 0, then we will say another class. So at this point we can imagine there is a boundary between this threshold. For example, think about that. If we go less than 0, this is for class 0. If this weighted sum is greater than 0, that means we can say class 1. So we can consider the red samples are positive class and then the blue samples are 0 class. So ultimately, we can think like a straight line boundary. But our real life problem is not so straightforward. There could have so many non-linear problems. So like this, so if our problem is like this kind of non-linear, so if the problem is like this kind of distribution, no straight line is possible to draw between these two classes. So no straight line can separate them properly. So then how do you solve this problem? Then obviously we need more sophisticated and modern machine learning technique to solve this kind of problem that can model this kind of nonlinear shape. So actually we also feel and observe this kind of phenomena in our real life. For example, if you are asked like this, if you are asked 2 plus 2 equal to what, you can immediately answer. But if your answer is 4, but if you are given like this kind of number multiplied with this, so your brain will take some time. That means it's trying to find the non-linearity between this kind of multiplication problem. So our brain also do like this. Sometimes it happens like if you are given a picture from your childhood memory, so it will take some time to recall the past memory that you have learned in your childhood. But if you are given a picture from your peers group, so you can immediately answer. So how do our brain do this kind of things? As you know, our brain has complicated structure of neural network. so that can combine knowledge from various sources. So similarly, if we want to model this kind of problem solving, so we need multi-layer perceptron. So multi-layer perceptron is nothing but combination of many neural networks, many perceptrons. So we can divide like this. So there is no hard and fast rule how long we can extend this network. It depends on totally your problem. So we can have binary output, we can have multi-class output. So there is no. So this intermediate network we will set a hidden layer, and output layer and input layer is the core component of artificial neural network. So when our network is extended with multiple layers, then the big question will arise: how do you train or learn this large network? So one thing you can imagine, like for example, if we consider about single value output like this. To my network, I provide the input of alphabet A to learn the network. So we know this alphabet is stored as a 0 and value in our computer system. So this thing will be input to our network. So we can imagine all pixels are. So all this pixel will be feed as input to the neural network, and our output should return this letter as the output. So what it does, this neural network, it will perform some mapping of all the weights so that that input represent as a alphabet A in our model. So it's actually adjust the weight. So now it's not a simple perceptron. So we can see the weight is passing into a subsequent layer. So that means our problem is complicating. So then we have solution is back propagation neural network, back propagation algorithm. So back propagation algorithm, what it does, first it calculates forward path. For example, when the input is come here, will arrive here. So then here we will calculate the weighted sum. Here we will also calculate weighted sum, and here we also calculate this weighted sum. This weighted sum now work as input for the next layer. So here we will get again weighted sum with changing weight, and finally we will have output. And in the first iteration we will observe that the output, target output, is far from predicate output. So that means our network is incur with lots of error. So then we know how to adjust this error. So this is called backpropagation algorithm. So for backpropagation algorithm, we have seen we need some sort of activation function. So most widely activation function you can imagine like sigmoid function. So sigmoid function is, if we say function f equal to 1 divided by 1 plus e to the power minus z. So here z is actually our weighted sum. So can you imagine this equation is similar with y equal to mx plus c? So can you know anyone answer what is the equation stands for?
Linear equation.
Huh?
Linear equation.
It's actually straight line equation, Saralrekha Samikaran. So this thing is also straight line equation. Here you can say input x is 10, this is also x, and we have some bias, but for straight line equation we have to consider some constant. This for straight line this is actually slope, but here we are considering weight, another vector. So maybe we didn't recognize this equation as a straight line equation. So we all learned the straight line equation only for 2 points, like this, only for two samples. But now we are considering many values, that's why we need, ultimately we are drawing some straight line between our samples. So both things actually represent the same thing. So these are the reason why we should learn this kind of uh, formula and equation in our high school or secondary high school. So then we need a sigmoid function. So sigmoid function does actually scale this weighted value between 0 to 1. So why it's important? Because for multilayer perceptron, if we don't use some sort of activation function, then the adjustment of error might produce something different result or flip the output. Since in perceptron output can be very large for computing with many weights and variables, that's why it's better to use some sort of activation function. So most widely used activation function is called sigmoid. So this is the sigmoid activation function. So there is other types of activation function is called ReLU. That means linear rectified unit. So it's take max between 0 and 1. So there are also tangent hyperbole, max out. So lots of activation can possible. So it's important when we try to learn a large network, so it's better to scaling the weighted sum output into some other form so that small change don't affect significantly the weight and bias information. So these are the some part about multi-layer perceptron. So then we have another type of machine learning is called support vector machine. So support vector machine, what it does, support vector machine is just not, it doesn't create only straight line. It's also try to push the boundary. So there is some advantage if you can make this kind of boundary. So that means it creates some hyperplane, not only straight line. So if you can maximize the different boundary between two classes, so when you apply this kind of algorithm for unknown test, so it has some probability to get good accuracy or good output. So this is the way support vector machine try to do. For support vector machine, so only boundary samples contribute for decision value. So it's also a sparse network. That means using small amount of sample or a small amount of training data, you can produce good generalization performance. So this is overall uh, support vector machine. Apart from support vector machine, we have also a nearest neighborhood classifier algorithm. So KNN is also very straightforward, so it doesn't apply so many complicated computation. So it does work like this. You have some sample space like this. You can consider this is your test distribution. These are training samples. Now you have some unknown sample like triangle. So you want to classify this sample. So it's better to show in two class. So these are two distribution of two class samples. Now you have some test sample, so you want to classify. So KNN classify, what it does, it first considers some neighbor. So this neighbor can be defined by the factor of k. So if k is 2, so it applies some Euclidean distance calculation to find first two neighbors. So this is your center. To base the center, think about that here. If we consider the k value equal to, so keeping this unknown sample into the center, the algorithm will try to find three nearest neighbor samples. So think about that. So once this boundary is created, then it counts how many samples come from each of this class. So what we can see, two samples from yellow class and one sample from blue class. So then it apply the maximum will be winner. So here we can see yellow is winner. So then you can say the unknown sample triangle is from yellow class. So next time there is another unknown sample come, like this kind of position. So then your algorithm will try to count to find the three neighbor of this unknown sample. So again it apply Euclidean distance based calculation, keeping this center. Try to find three neighbor. So what we can see, when it's performed calculating the how many samples in this boundary comes from which class. So here we can see two samples from blue class and one sample from yellow class. So according to rule, the maximum will be winner. So then this unknown sample will be classified as a class blue. So by this way, actually, KNN classifier perform classification task. So it's also called instance-based learning. That means it doesn't need pre-trained model. So simultaneously it can perform classification. For other type of classification, you can observe that first you have to complete training. Then once you have done your training phase, so then you can use that model for testing. So that is kind of, you can say, passive approach. So it's called instance-based learning. So once we have a clear idea about all this algorithm, then we have learned about committee machine. So what it does, committee machine? Committee machine actually combines many experts for making more sophisticated design. So what we have seen, so all these algorithms are specifically good for some sort of problem. So all machine learning is not master for all kind of problems. So sometimes it will be good if we can combine the advantages of different kinds of machine learning algorithm that can solve many more complex problems. So these are the idea about committee machine. After that, what we have learned? We have learned convolutional neural network. So convolutional neural network is nothing but a variant of artificial neural network. So in convolution phase, first they perform some filtering. So why do we need filtering? So filtering is important because we have seen that in input image, all the information is not necessary, so that we can extract unnecessary information. And there is some advantage of filtering or convolution phase. So if we provide this kind of input to artificial neural network, it might produce something complete opposite result. But as per human perception, we can still recognize this is as an alphabet A. So this kind of translation and scaling and zooming variation can't properly traced by artificial neural network. So then how do you solve this kind of problem? Then is convolution neural network provides a solution for this kind of translation and scaling and zooming variation. Why it's important? Because handwritten uh, recognition, we can predict that the complex variability of handwritten. As you know, just because of a change of writing style, so it could be more complicated to understand even by expert human who have written this kind of text. So obviously for computer will also suffer lots of challenge to solve this kind of problem. So what it does, so convolution neural network actually extract these uh, this information as a feature value or attributes, not outside or boundary value. Then this information is passed to, as usual, artificial neural network. So then it's perform classification. So this is called a convolution neural network. Then we have also learned recurrent neural network. So recurrent neural network is also some sort of time series prediction. As you know, so whatever we have considering here is for time t0. So sometime we have in our real life application there is a relation between time. So for each time stem, if we want to analyze some system, so then recurrent neural network also help us a lot for this kind of problem. Then what we can say unsupervised machine learning. So far we have discussed various types of supervised machine learning. So you have to be very clear about what is supervised and unsupervised. So I'm saying here are two class. That means I am giving them some level information. This is class 1 and this is class 0. Otherwise, how do I say them as supervised? So with input, I am also telling them some information. This is called supervised machine learning. Apart from supervised machine learning, we have also lots of unsupervised application like so these are all same sort of data to the system. There is no information which one is class 1, which one is class 0. So to the computer system, everything is same. So in this case, supervised machine learning can't help us. So one thing we can only do, try to find how many different types of distribution is available here. So we have lots of algorithm for uh, performing clustering. So one is k-mean algorithm. So we have also principal component analysis. So this kind of application is actually help us for distinguish how many distribution or how many cluster is exist. So once we can cluster them, we can then denote them as a class 1 and class 2 and so on. So this is called one example of unsupervised learning. So then we have also self-organizing map. The self-organizing map actually help us to represent high dimension data into 2D network. So you will have
স্যার আপনার ভয়েসটা
some.
একটু খারাপ আসছে স্যার।
Okay, so এখন কি
জি
improve
স্যার,
হচ্ছে?
জি স্যার এখন ঠিক আছে।
Fine. So we can perform clustering using k-mean algorithm, principal component analysis. So apart from this, we have also another type of unsupervised machine learning algorithm, what it calls SOM or self-organized map. So self-organized map, what it does, so first it will have some 2D grid of neuron. So this kind of grid will try to divide your data into two groups and all this neuron will be segregated into two groups. So by this way, we can also visualize high dimensional data in 2D plane or 3D plane. So this is called unsupervised self-organizing map, unsupervised machine learning algorithm. So now the big question, okay, fine, we have learned so many algorithms, so what we can do. Yes, still we have realized that there are lots of application, all these algorithms. So however, still we need to be clear and specific area where we can apply these things. So deep learning, so at this stage, I hope you don't need to be confused about the term deep learning. Everything is sort of learning. So it says why it says deep learning because it's extending artificial neural network into lots of layers. That's why it's called deep learning. So deep learning is current trend of machine learning technology. The fact is that deep learning actually significantly improved the machine learning technology in past days. What we have to do first, we have to extract manually feature of a problem. For example, if I want to classify some apples and orange, first we have to perform some age detection algorithm and then feature extraction. Finally, we get this input and to forward to the artificial neural network classification. But at this stage, deep learning technology doesn't need to rely on this sort of manual feature extraction process because we can extend our network significantly large that can cope with lots of parameters for learning a problem. So this is one advantage of deep learning. So deep learning is an artificial intelligence form which develops algorithm called artificial neural network, working by modeling the human brain function and structure. So machine learning has been demand for a long time. However, job including deep learning have risen 35-fold between 2015 to 2017. So neurons of artificial intelligence takes technology like computer vision, autonomous vehicle, automatic text generation. So automatic text generation is also a very powerful technique. As you can say, you are speaking something and automatic text will be generated for different kinds of language, English, and then Bengali or some well-known language. So this technology is much needed at this stage. As we can say in YouTube, so they have some automated translating system, but its performance is not state of the art. If you also compare with performance of a automatic text generation from Facebook, you'll find they produce sometimes very absurd translation. So how can you improve for this kind of technology? Obviously, a great field. And then facial recognition, as you know, to improve the surveillance system or video monitoring system, they have also wide varieties of application. Despite having a great deal of negative press recently, facial recognition technology is regarded as the artificial intelligence future due to its immense popularity. It promises an immense growth in 2020 and further. So facial recognition, artificial intelligence application, facial recognition as artificial intelligence platform form helps identity of a person, their digital image or pattern of their facial features. So the year 2020 will witness a growth in the use of facial recognition technology with more reliability and enhanced accuracy. So there have also lots of application in privacy policy. So we have also need to consider for this kind of ethical concern while developing AI-based and machine learning-based application. The introduction of GDPR. So this is actually group policy for privacy and protection of European Union. So if you ever work for any European company, first you have to pass this kind of privacy and protection policy. Become the talk of the town in 2018 and 2020 seems to be experienced further privacy and policy conversation. It's important for privacy and protection and sincere access to data privacy. So privacy protection, artificial intelligence technology, mostly people don't know about the way in which their digital information is being used. So, as you know, in our country, so asking for your personal information is just fun. People even don't imagine to share with each other personal information. But in Europe, the situation is very different. They will never ask your religion and some important personal information if they don't really need. So all people and all agencies can't also ask this kind of data. So such information is lost in the fine print many times and other times even not informed its users. The finest example is Facebook latest issue related to privacy policy. Privacy policy will have much bigger importance in these days. So matter of consent of use system, particularly around AI apps, would be huge, providing that laws and surrounding AI area still new and require further understanding. So now the another important is AI or machine learning enabled chips. Artificial intelligence is heavily banked on specialized process of completing the CPU. Even the highly advanced CPU may not improve the speed of training of AI model. So artificial intelligence and machine learning, when inferencing the model requires extra hardware to do complex mathematical computation to make tasks faster like facial recognition, object detection. By year 2020, the chip manufacturing company NVIDIA, Intel, ARM, AMD, Qualcomm will ship specialized chips capable of making execution of AI-enabled application much faster. So such chip will optimize for particular utilization and scenario concerning computer vision, speech recognition, natural language processing. So in cloud-based, we can also have wide varieties of AI application. As you know, these days all application is transforming into web-based. If I remember my past working experience, so there was huge struggle to manage your mail. So we used that time Microsoft Exchange mail server. So you can't send email more than maybe 10 megabyte, not 10 megabyte, maybe 1 or 2 megabyte. We can't send email, and then our mailbox was full if it exceed only 1 GB. So these days, these are actually fun. So everything is transforming into web. So that means cloud-based network can boost the business. So obviously, AI system and machine learning system can significantly contribute this area. So according to an expert, the latest public cloud provider will have a raise in 2020. On the other hand, the enterprise spending will increase. So cloud, artificial intelligence future, the six well-known hyperscale cloud leaders, Amazon Web Service, Alibaba, Google, IBM, Microsoft Azure, Oracle will become larger in 2020 as per the report prediction. As you know, so our world is also facing new era of time. So these days, remote work will be significantly improved. So people will try to automate their system so that they can engage and perform everything for remote. So AI system and machine learning system can significantly contribute this kind of areas. At the same time, the world cloud computing market will also include cloud performance, software as a service, business service will also cross 200 billion in this year, expanding above 20% as per report. So computational neuroscience, as you know, in brain science, in past, so brain science was only taught as a matter of
It's
medical science. Okay.
স্যার আমরা লাস্ট যে স্লাইড দেখলাম স্যার, এক্সকিউজ মি স্যার,
Okay, okay. Okay, this
ক্লাউড বস এক্স্যাক্টলি স্যার। স্যার এখানে তো আমাদের দেখা যায় আমরা যখন অনলাইন ক্লাউড ইউজ করি, বিভিন্ন অর্গানাইজেশনের ক্লাউড হয় স্যার, সামহাও যদি এরকম হয় যে আমরা তো এখানে ইনফরমেশন রাখতেছি, বিভিন্ন টাইপস ইনফরমেশন, সো কোনো মানে কোনোভাবে যদি কোম্পানির সিকিউরিটি পারপাসের জন্য এটা লিক হয়ে যায় কিংবা হয়, এই ক্ষেত্রে স্যার ইন্টারন্যাশনাল রুলসটা কি কিংবা আদার অব্লিগেশনস গুলো কি আছে স্যার?
হ্যাঁ, এখানে কিন্তু এই যে আমি যে ইউরোপিয়ান এশিয়াতে জানি না এরকম কোনো পলিসি আছে কিনা। ইউরোপিয়ান ইউনিয়নে যে এই যে এই একটা যে গ্রুপ পলিসি আছে যে তাদের দেশে যে ধরনের কোম্পানি বা যে ধরনের পিপল যারাই যা অপারেট করে এই পলিসির আন্ডারে তাদেরকে সাইন ইন করতে হবে। সো দে হ্যাভ ক্লিয়ারলি মেনশন অল দিস প্রসেস এন্ড পেনাল্টিজ। So you can imagine, so if some company uh, mm, reads your information and personal data, they're supposed to be fined as a 2% of their annual revenue. So this kind of policy and penalty is applicable for this group policy side. So for example, you have agreed with Microsoft and Amazon for their cloud service. If they can't protect your data, obviously they will be liable for this kind of information backing. So for European Union, it's not at this moment it's not a very big issue. So you will be get all this compensation and solution. But the issue obviously for other areas who doesn't have yet some or sophisticated privacy and policy. So obviously it's a big concern if everything transferred to cloud. It's really very big issue. So I'm not sure at this area blockchain can help or not. So as we can say, blockchain technology provide more secure connection. Usually they thought it's not so easy to retrieve data. So I hope concerned providers are working on this area.
ক্রিপ্টোকারেন্সি ট্রেডিং প্ল্যাটফর্ম গুলো সবাই ব্লকচেন ইউজ করে থাকে।
So the cloud obviously a concern because think about that if you want to upload your market share, your a monthly business plan campaign into cloud, so if you don't feel secure, so that's why I'm also concerned. So obviously you have to concern some big companies, but if you consider big company, then the issue about the cost. So then it's better to hire some expert AI guys and build their own network. So there are some always trade-off issues between money, time, safety, security.
ওকে স্যার, থ্যাংক ইউ স্যার।
And so now the computational neuroscience. So computational neuroscience is the only field that can help you understand how we are able to think, process information in your brain. Even by the time we finish the sentence, so there will be a good number of actions happening inside our brain which can be decoded by the body of neuron. So the ultimate goal of computational neuroscience is to explain how electrical and chemical signal are used into the brain to represent and process the information. It explains the biological mechanism of computation in neuroscience, computer simulation of neural circuit and modeling. So I even didn't know that before my PhD that computer science student can work in brain science. So no, it's possible. Many computer science students these days working in brain science. As you know, only doctor can't explain these biological phenomena just explaining into some MRI image or some other image. You have to transform this knowledge into some mm, computer system. So most widely this kind of work is said the complex system. So whenever you find any complex system laboratory, so they usually combine the brain science and computer science to this kind of research. So maybe you have also heard about bioinformatics. So that means there are also some sort of, as you know, for this for drug discovery for your disease. So obviously the work should be combined with computer scientist and medical doctor. So this kind of research is also possible. So now we will discuss more detail about lots of application area. So as you know, these days mm, lots of AI system and machine learning are combining for some diagnosis and troubleshooting of device and system. The medical diagnosis was one of the first area to which expert system and intelligent system was applied around 1976. However, diagnosis of engineering system quickly surpassed the medical diagnosis. So, what it mean by engineering system? As you know, these days we use lots of critical application like spacecraft, aircraft, and then lots of medical equipment. So, while refining, there is any anomaly or any abruption happen into this critical application that might incur you loss of financial loss as well as human casualties. So it's important to diagnose this in earlier stage for decision making. So this is one important application area, diagnosis and troubleshooting. Also have planning and scheduling. So if I give an example of large warehouse like mm, Amazon as well as Walmart, so they have hundreds of or millions of products have to sort or schedule or make some planning. So by human people, it might cost them lots of money, but if they make some intelligence system or AI-based system using machine learning technique, they can usually easily perform this kind of planning and scheduling. So commercial potential and planning of scheduling have been recognized as a very large. So example, also consider airlines scheduling. So as you can also think about that for busy airports, so they have hundreds of flights in every 5-10 minutes. So how do they schedule? So manual process is impractical. Obviously, you need some modern approach to schedule these things. And then we have also configuration of manufactured object and sub assembly. So we know some critical application like if you want to manufacture a car or aircraft and other large or long chain of process. So this subsystem is dependent with each other. So if we wait for who will ask you, then the next item is coming, be ready. So this kind of process is very, I think, messy. So if you have some expert or intelligent system, you can generate some signal or light before the next job or scheduling coming. So configuration problem are also synthesized from a given set of elements related by set of constants. The expert system have been very useful to find solution. For example, modular home building, manufacturing involved complex engineering process. And then the important part is the financial decision making. So as you know, the financial service are also vigorous user of expert system technique. Advisory program have been created to assist bankers in determining whether to make loans, business and individual, insurance company to assess the risks presented by the consumer and to determine a price for insurance. So expert system also used typically application in the field of financial market and foreign exchange trading. So as I said, um, a stock market prediction, foreign exchange, trade analysis. So there have lots of application in financial sector. So knowledge publishing. So this is also relatively new, but also potentially explosive area. So here the primary function of intelligence system is to deliver knowledge that is relevant to user problem. The two most widely known intelligence system, one is advisor on appropriate grammatical use in a text. So as you know, these days many software-based system, software-based application is designing who can fix your grammar, who can suggest you constructive paraphrase, so not just word or vocabulary. And the other is tax advisor on tax strategy, taxes, and individual tax policy. So process monitoring and control. So this area is also related with me. So here intelligence system does analysis of real-time data from physical device, looking for anomalies, predicting trends, and controlling optimality and failure correction. Example of real-time system that can actively monitor process are found in the steel making, oil refinery industry. As you know, if you consider about Chevron, and then there are lots of SQL. So there is any anomalies in the refinery process can cause significant loss of money, and sometimes it can be disaster for human lives as well as environment. So continuous monitoring is, and control is very important. So design and manufacturing, here the intelligence system assists in the design of physical device and process ranging from high-level conceptual design and abstract entities all the way to the factory floor configuration and manufacturing process. So these are all about application. I hope you are now clear and comprehensive. You have comprehensive idea how you can utilize this kind of knowledge. So that's all from this lesson. So if you have any question and query, we can discuss. So, and I also believe you are strong motivated about this knowledge and this information. Now, touch this to how do you apply in your real life. So I have some information like, as you know, what do you mean by learning something? So I find some important steps. When you attempt to learn something new thing, so first step is knowledge. How much knowledge I have gathered from this process. And second is reasoning. Reasoning is the process. For example, I have attended some course or lesson. I learned some knowledge. Oh, I'm feeling very confident. I'm feeling motivated. I have learned something new thing. The next question, reasoning. So can you explain this knowledge to someone? So that should be your second goal from learning something new. Then third point is skill. Sometimes it happens that I have learned something knowledge I can explain during the class or after a few days, but it doesn't last long time in our brain because we can't transform this knowledge into skill. if I say about the swimming is a skill, if someone learns swimming in their childhood, do you think they will forget in their adulthood? So no. So this is called skill. And then another important skill is cycling. You can learn cycling in your childhood, but you can carry this skill for your lifetime. So, but think about that. You have learned some knowledge in high school or even in bachelor. We forget many things. Why does this happen? So that means we can transform our knowledge into skill. Okay, fine. I have many skill. I know many types of skills: swimming, driving, jumping, but I can't. I never applied this kind of skill to solve a real world problem. So as soon as you can't apply this skill to solve a problem, that means you can create a product of your own. This knowledge will not also be perfect. So once you are perfect, then you need a business guy for marketing. So these are the process for perfectly learning something. So if you have any question, so